evening. What do you want to do tonight?
The same thing we do every night, Pinky. Try to take over the world.
Visual Festation. How to Visualize and Manifest the Life of Your Dreams by Peter Adams. Narration by Gordon Foreman. Dedication. This book is dedicated to my loving wife, Robin, for whom I am truly blessed and grateful to be lucky enough to have in my life. Introduction. First off, I would like to say thank you for opening this book. I have read hundreds of great works from the ancient to the modern, and many are saying the same message, just in different ways. Everyone has their own style of expressing things, and I will be doing that in my own way through this book. What I have tried to accomplish in this book is to give you a simple overview of how I believe the universe works. From there, my goal is to help you define the life of your dreams. Lastly, I will give you the exact techniques which I have used and from which I have gotten amazing results in my life. I have used these techniques to work with the universe, and I feel as though my life is magical and truly blessed. Everyone is in a different spot in their lives, and if you are reading this book, my guess is that you are looking for some type of change with something in your life. After reading this book, doing the exercises, and using the techniques, you will have what you need to be, do, or have anything you want in this life. There is a disclaimer to that statement, and that is that you must believe beyond a shadow of a doubt that it is possible. To take that one step further, you are going to need to believe that it already exists for you and that it is on its way. The concepts in this book which I have written about are universal, and they are true for everyone. I am not here to challenge anyone's belief system, challenge anyone's religion, or get into a debate about how the universe was created. When I refer to the universe, it may be what you refer to as God, Buddha, source energy, universal life force, or whatever you believe in. The important thing you need to remember is that whatever you choose to call it, it is still true. If you are ready to start creating the life of your dreams, let us begin. Chapter 1. 12 Crazy Goals. Time for a change. I, like many others, got introduced to the self-help industry as a result of being unhappy with the circumstances that existed in my life. I had been downsized as a result of a corporate consolidation, and I was unable to find a replacement job which paid anything near what I was formerly earning. Suddenly, I clearly understood the meaning of a relatively new term known as underemployed. To make matters worse, I was working in a position that was not a spiritual match for my soul. My job duties as an analyst for a large for-profit hospital corporation included explaining why the hospital I oversaw had a good or bad month financially. What really bothered me was, if we had a good month, that meant it was a tragic month for the patients and their families. It really hit home one day when I ran into a neighbor of mine in the cafeteria who told me that his mother had been admitted and that she was not going to be coming home again. The following month we had a great month financially, and I had to explain in my report that it was because we had an outlier. An outlier, in hospital lingo, refers to a patient who has billed charges that exceed $250,000. Seeing my neighbor at the hospital and knowing that his mother's prolonged death was boosting our bottom line, I knew I had to get out of this business. When it was bad, it was good, was not the kind of business I wanted to be in. Being unhappy with my professional life and simultaneously having financial challenges as a result of being downsized, I knew that I needed a major change. I don't remember how many times I could not sleep at night, and I would turn on the television to see Anthony Robbins' infomercial for his personal power system. I felt like he was really talking to me when he asked, "Are you ready to change your life? What are you waiting for?" The only problem I had was that I didn't have enough money or room on my credit card to buy his system. Well, the universe was not going to let money get in the way of getting personal power. The following morning I ran into my friend Ron on the beach, and he told me that he had just bought it, and that he would let me borrow it as soon as he got through with it. Now I was fired up, and I remembered Tony saying that we needed to take massive action on the infomercial. So, rather than sit patiently and wait for Ron to finish the course, I got started immediately and went down to the local library and checked out a couple of self-help classics. One was The Power of Your Subconscious Mind by Dr. Joseph Murphy, and the other was The Magic of Believing by Claude Bristol. After reading these, it was clear that we could make massive changes in our lives for the better through the effective use of our subconscious mind. Early one morning, while sitting down on the beach, I meditated on the question, what should I be doing with my life? After a few minutes of meditating on that question, a movie started playing in my head. It was crystal clear, and it showed me being a real estate broker who was very active in charities, and there were pictures and thank you letters on the walls of my office. I don't know how long the vision lasted, but when I came out of meditation, I had tears of joy in my eyes, and my body felt like it was buzzing from head to toe. Whatever this was, it was powerful, to say the least. Over the next few days, I pondered over the idea that the universe was telling me I should be a broker. Was that right? At the time, I saw myself as a real estate investor, and realtors were just people who got in the way of making good deals. I also had committed to opening a real estate investment company with a friend of mine who was moving to Florida, so I was going to make that my main priority. In the meantime, the movie got tucked away in storage, only to be recalled at a later date. Ron finally finished going through Personal Power, and as promised, he let me borrow it. I thought it was amazing, and I started incorporating a lot of what I heard on the audio CDs into my daily routine. One of the things I really liked was what Tony called an hour of power. In his hour of power, he talked about getting up in the morning and spending an hour alone and following a routine which consisted of exercise, meditation, and reading motivational material. I made some tweaks to his program, and each morning after working out at the gym, I would drive down to the beach and spend 60 to 90 minutes on the beach doing my hour of power each morning before going to what I started to call my temp job. In my hour of power, I would get a cup of coffee at the local 7-Eleven and drive on to Siesta Key and down to Turtle Beach, which was at the southern end of the island. I would then grab my folding beach chair and a bag containing the books I was reading, a small copy of the New Testament, a notebook for brainstorming and scripting, my vision book, and my small notebook that contained my written goals. One of the things I started to notice was the fact that if it rained out and I could not sit on the beach for my hour of power, I could feel the difference in my energy level and mood. I would actually feel like I was mildly depressed, which was not how I wanted to start my day. One morning, while driving to the beach, I was listening to Tony Robbins talk about traveling across Russia on a train, and during the whole trip he worked on setting goals, then rewriting them bigger and bigger, until he was at a point where his goals seemed huge. When I arrived at the beach, I decided that it was time for me to make some big goals which were going to stretch me out of my comfort zone. I took out a notebook and I started to work on goals which would cover business, health and fitness, travel, relationships, and my spiritual connection with the universe. When I got done with the list, I had 12 goals written down, which to me at that time seemed absolutely huge. I knew that if these goals came true, I would have the life of my dreams. The next thing I started to do was to work with my list of goals and try to develop what each one would look like and what it would feel like when it manifested. I put a lot of thought into this as I was serious about getting the results that I wanted. What I did next was to create a small notebook in which I included some affirmations, a few quotes from the Bible about prayer, and a list of my goals. And after each of the goals I drew a smiley face or two to represent happiness and gratitude for its coming into my experience. Goal number 1. I am happy. The first goal was pretty straightforward, and it meant that I was happy with all aspects of my life. When I would read this goal, I would get into a deep feeling of gratitude for how great it was to be happy, and I would truly experience the feeling of being happy. Goal number 2. I have no consumer debt. The second goal was a real stretch for me at the time because I felt like I was being crushed by consumer debt. I had credit cards that ended up being maxed out as a result of me trying to subsidize my loss of income from the downsizing. I also still owed on student loans that helped me finance my undergraduate and graduate degrees. The payment on the student loans felt like a car payment for a Porsche that would never be paid off, and the minimum payment on the credit cards felt like a mortgage. Between the credit cards and the student loans, I believe I owed roughly $35,000. I wish that was all I owed, but it was not. We also had car payments. Out of necessity, we bought 2 new cars before the downsizing, as the ones we had were breaking down frequently, with major repairs being needed. So add another $20,000 to the mix. Now we are up to roughly $55,000 in consumer debt, and that didn't include our mortgage of $100,000. The one word which best described this feeling I had at the time was hopeless. Well, Tony said think big, so I was taking his advice on this one. To create the visualization for this goal, I would see myself going to the mailbox at the end of the driveway. When I got to the mailbox, I would open it up to find it either empty or just containing some junk mail. I would then feel how good it was not to have any bills in the mail. At the time I set this goal, I got a sick feeling in my stomach every time I went to retrieve the mail in the mailbox, as it would be stuffed with bills, late notices, etc. If you are in a similar situation right now, let me tell you that it is not hopeless at all, and that miracles do happen. Read on. Goal number 3. I am a very successful full-time real estate investor and self-made millionaire. When I wrote this goal, I was in the process of unwinding a real estate portfolio of 10 rental homes which I had bought with my former business partner. He decided to move out of Florida, and we decided it was time to dissolve our real estate investment company. Creating the visualization for this particular goal was easy, as I was already in the business part-time. For this visualization, I would see myself running through what my daily routine would consist of as a full-time real estate investor. I would see myself driving to the beach for my hour of power in a white Ford F-150 pickup truck with an extra cab and a tan interior. I would see myself grabbing my folding beach chair, my bag of books, and the daily newspaper to scour the classifieds for potential properties. I would also see myself going to a closing, shaking hands with the buyers, and picking up a check for the profits from a fix and flip. One of the weirdest things that happened to me about 20% of the time that I tried to run this scene in my mind was that instead of driving a white pickup truck, a pearl white Lexus LS 400 with gold package and chrome trim would show up in my visualization when I was trying to see the pickup truck. When this happened, I would come out of my visualization and wonder why the heck a luxury car was coming into my visualization. You can't haul sheetrock in a Lexus, so how was I going to be a real estate investor? It didn't make any sense. The next day I would do the visualization again, and I would be happy to see my pickup truck back in my mind. Goal number 4. I am fit and active. I would say I am fit and active more as an affirmation than something that I would visualize. At the time, I had already completed 3 Ironman triathlons. An iron distance triathlon consists of a 2.4-mile swim, a 112-mile bike ride, and a 26.2-mile full marathon run. The training it takes to compete and successfully finish one of these is almost like having a second full-time job. So my goal was to maintain my fitness in the future. Goal number 5. We have newer vehicles owned outright. This I would say is an affirmation, and I would feel how good it felt not to have any coupon books for car payments. Goal number 6. We have disposable money to have real vacations. At the time I wrote this affirmation, we were broke, and the only vacations we could afford were to take time off from work and have a staycation at home in Florida. For this visualization, I would see us going on a ski trip to Colorado, and I would see my wife saying how much fun she was having, and I would have a feeling of gratitude that she was happy. Goal number 7. I am able to give a lot of money to help others in need, and I do. When I wrote this goal, I knew that I wanted to be a philanthropist. The reason I say that is that my wife and I had become active in Habitat for Humanity, which is a great cause. Habitat helps lower-income people afford a nice new home that they could not otherwise afford. The homeowners who get these homes pay for their down payment through sweat equity, which can often take them over a year to complete. On one Saturday morning, I asked the construction supervisor what types of appliances came with the finished homes. He said that they just came with a stove and a refrigerator. I told him that my wife and I were moving from a house to a condo, and that we would not need our washer and dryer and would like to donate them if we could. The supervisor said that Mary, not her real name, could really use them, as she was a single mother with 4 children. We had actually been working on her house together that morning. I walked over to her and said that I heard that this was going to be her house. She replied with, "Yes, isn't it just beautiful?" I then asked her if she could use a washer and dryer for her new house, and that we had a set that we didn't need. I have a hard time describing what happened next. Mary screamed out, "Yes!" in excitement, and then hugged me. When she hugged me, this amazing feeling of joy rushed through my body. It was as if my whole body was buzzing. I had never felt anything like it before, but if this was what being charitable was like, I wanted to have this feeling all of the time. To visualize this goal, I would see myself being at the ribbon cutting for a new home to be donated to a family by Habitat. I would see myself being called up to hand the scissors and the keys to the new family. I could feel that feeling I had from Mary's hug, and I could see people clapping in joy for the new family. When I did this visualization, I would always end up with tears of joy in my eyes. Goal number 8. I live near the beach and have a beautiful home. This I said as an affirmation, and I would have a feeling of gratitude for how happy I was to live near the beach. Goal number 9. I own a large real estate portfolio. I also said this as an affirmation to reinforce goal number 3 of being a full-time real estate investor. Goal number 10. I am trusted by investors and have the ability to raise large sums of money. At the time I wrote this, I only had 2 investors who were really close friends. I would say this as an affirmation with the feeling that this was absolutely true. Goal number 11. I have a great relationship with my wife. I would say this as an affirmation, and I would feel gratitude for having my wife Robin in my life. Goal number 12. I have a great spiritual relationship with God. I said this as an affirmation, and I would feel gratitude for everything in my life, for the things that were on their way. What happened over the following 3 years of writing out these goals is nothing short of a miracle. Writing this down and realizing that this story happened to me inspires me even today. I was there, and I still feel a sense of bewilderment as I relay the story and sequence of events which came to pass to make my dreams come true. Without further ado, here's how it all played out on the universe's playground. I got a notice in the mail saying that my real estate salesperson license was coming up for renewal, and that I was required to take a mandatory continuing education class if I wanted to keep the license. I decided that it would make a lot more sense if I took a few extra hours and went for the real estate broker's license, and that way I could keep all the commission and could work independently. It was at this point that I remembered the movie that had played out at the beach, which had me being a real estate broker who was active in charities. Now that I was more spiritual, I started to wonder if this was what I should have been doing before. I signed up for the classes and began working toward my Florida real estate broker's license. With my broker's license, I could open up my own brokerage company. To adhere to the movie, I decided that I would give 10% of our gross commission from each sale to charity. On a Sunday afternoon in Sarasota in the spring of 2003, my wife and I were driving down to the waterfront to have lunch at a restaurant called Marina Jack. On the way, I stopped at an ATM to get $20 out. As we drove, we started throwing around names for the new charity-based brokerage I was going to open. We finally settled on the name Benefactor Realty, and we went into the restaurant for lunch. After lunch, we decided to walk along the waterfront park, which had a number of large sculptures on display. As we walked down the sidewalk, a man came up to us and asked us if we could spare any money. He needed $8 so that he could sleep at the shelter and get a meal and a shower. I put my hand in my right front pocket and pulled out $2. I apologized to him for not having more, but he thanked us graciously. As I walked away, I remembered that I had gotten the $20 bill from the ATM and that it was in my back pocket. I turned around and went back to the man and saw that another Good Samaritan was handing him a $5 bill. Telling him that his luck was changing, and now he was 2 for 2, I gave him the $20 I had found in my pocket. There was something different about this person. He did not look like the many homeless I had seen before. He was dressed in the clothes of a tradesman, and he had the clearest blue eyes I had ever seen. As he started to walk along the waterfront with us, he told us this story of how his girlfriend had hurt her back in a car accident, and how she had gotten hooked on pain pills. He said that he had tried to take the pills away from her, and she had called the police on him and filed a restraining order saying that he was abusive. Now that he could not go back to his home, he was worried that he was going to become homeless. To give him hope, I told him about the story of Og Mandino. Og was at one time in his life a homeless and hopeless alcoholic. Og started to read self-help books at the library and turned himself into a millionaire, a best-selling author, and an incredible motivational speaker. I also told the man that he should get his hands on a Bible. At that moment, he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, brand-new, white-covered version of the New Testament. I don't know how I did this, but I went to look for the verse from the Gospel of Mark that I read every day on the beach, and as if by magic I hit the exact page on my first try. I read him the verse, I then went to find the verse from Matthew that I read in my hour of power, and again I hit the exact page on my first try. I read that verse to him, and after telling him that everything was going to work out, I handed him back his copy of the New Testament. He thanked us again and said that we had really helped him out. After I had walked about 7 steps away from the man, I got this rush of energy that I can only describe as what happens on that old television series, The Highlander, when Duncan MacLeod goes through a quickening. I could feel my whole body tingling the way it did the day Mary from Habitat hugged me. All I know is that whole experience was strange, to say the least. I also remember wondering if that was somehow a test to see if I was serious about having a company called Benefactor Realty and about giving to charity. Not long after that, I opened up Benefactor Realty and began to work as a real estate broker part-time when I was not at my temp job. Fortunately, most people who have jobs do most of their looking at properties on the weekend. One Sunday afternoon, on our way back from looking at a restaurant site on the East Coast, I received 2 calls saying that offers we had put in for a buyer had gotten accepted, which was great news, as we had another property go under contract on Saturday. I was now looking at making more money in 3 days than I could in 6 months on the temp job. My wife looked at me and said, "Pete, you can't afford to work there anymore." We drove home, and I wondered if I should really quit my day job and embark on this real estate thing. About 10 years earlier, I had tried leaving corporate to open a small business, which didn't make it because it was undercapitalized, and I was worried about it happening again. The following morning I went into my office to try to figure out what to do. I will never forget the call that changed my life. It was around 10 a.m. on Monday morning when my office phone rang. It was my good friend Bill. I had worked with him, and we had been downsized together by our former, now bankrupt, employer. When I answered, Bill asked me, "What are you doing?" I thought this was weird, so I said, "Bill, you called me at work. What do you think I'm doing?" Bill then said, "That's not what I meant. What I meant was, what are you thinking? Are you thinking about doing something?" I told him that I was thinking about leaving the hospital and selling real estate. He said, "The money is there. The money is there." Bill then told me that he had been meditating at the lake by his house when a message came beaming in from the universe which said that he needed to call me and give me the message that the money is there. You can't make this kind of stuff up. As if getting 3 deals under contract was not enough, now I had the universe calling me on the telephone. Not being one to question the universe, I immediately sent an email to my director to tell him I was going to be resigning. A few minutes later he called me to tell me that he was happy for me, and that he knew it was only a matter of time before I left to do something with real estate. I then went to meet with my original investors and asked them if they would be interested in investing with me again. This time it was going to be as a private line of credit for my new company. They were excited about the new opportunity and wrote me a check on the spot. Bill's words were now echoing again, and the money really was there. Driving back home on my normal route that week, I looked off to the side and saw a pearl white Lexus LS400 with chrome trim and the gold package with the for sale sign on it. I pulled into the parking lot and walked over to the car. It was the car that had kept popping up in my visualizations. It was not a car that looked like the car. It was the exact car. Without hesitation, I called the number on the sign and bought the car. I then got a call from a wonderful tenant we had in a rental property. She called to ask me if I would help her find a house to purchase, as she did not want to get priced out of the market. I said sure, and then I asked her if she wanted to buy the one she was in. She wasn't sure if she could afford it, but I told her I would help her with closing costs, etc. What I hadn't realized was that this property had appreciated by almost $35,000 over a 2-year period since we bought it. In less than a 60-day period, I had opened a new company and left my job, sold 3 properties as a broker, sold the rental house for a windfall profit, and paid off all my consumer debt, including the 2 cars, all the credit cards, and my student loans. This was totally out of the blue, and totally blew me away. My life had completely changed for the better. When I wrote those dozen goals, I never saw any of this coming. I had no idea how it was going to happen. All I knew was that it was my job to keep believing it was going to happen and let the universe handle the details. That same year, my wife and I went on our ski vacation to Breckenridge, Colorado, and 12 months later, we bought a waterfront home close to the beach. With help from the universe, we blew the crazy goals out of the water. There was more to come the following year, and this is going to blow you away. Chapter 2. Winning the Lottery. After an unbelievable year during which all of my goals and dreams came true, I started to think about what else there was that I truly wanted to experience in my life. My life had become almost magical. It was clear that there was nothing that I could not be, do, or have if I practiced faith and used my visualization techniques. Being a triathlete and having successfully completed 5 iron distance races, I started to contemplate the idea of racing in the Ironman World Championship in Kailua Kona, Hawaii, which is often referred to as Ironman Hawaii, or, as it is known in the triathlon world, Kona. Anyone who has ever competed in an iron distance triathlon will tell you that being fortunate enough to compete in the Hawaii Ironman is like winning Wimbledon, the Masters, and the Super Bowl all in one day. Before I get into my next Ironman experience, let me give you some background behind the event. The history behind the Ironman triathlon. The Ironman in Hawaii is a legendary race. It came into being after